Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at recreating the Apple iOS Alarms app in Figma. So essentially what we have here are two screenshots, or basically for our purposes just one, and this is what we are going to be attempting to recreate in Figma. As you can see, we're going to pretend this part of the app doesn't exist, and we're just going to focus on this one, which is, in my estimate, the most frequently used part of this app. I feel like this part gets ignored, usually. In any case, let's get started. So what do we have here? We have a screenshot that has dimensions of 375 by 812. We're gonna go for this value as well in our new frame. And to do that, I'm gonna press the F on my keyboard and then go over here to archive. Since my phone is, I guess, old now, so we're gonna go for iPhone 11 Pro /X. And so this whole thing is a part of the iOS, I think it's called Clock app, right? Yeah, Clock. And this is just one of these sub features this app has. So this is the alarm, and we're not going to be creating stopwatch, timer, world clock, and so on. We're just going to focus on alarms. So we're going to have some kind of scrollable frame with components that have two states. Then we're going to add some fixed header and some fixed footer, right? So why don't we get started with creating the alarm components? So we're gonna create one unit, one row of these alarms, right? So I'm gonna use my text tool and type in 620, right? As you normally would, 620. Now, when it comes to the font, I looked this up and I think Apple iOS uses a font called SF Pro. As you can see, I already installed this font in my system, so it shows up in Figma. I'm not sure if Figma provides this by default, but if you don't have this font, just I think it's available to download for free. And we're gonna approximate the 620 text field. So when it comes to the size of this text, I think this is obviously way smaller, so I'm gonna move that over here. And I'm gonna sample the color from this text, right? So we have 620. I think the font weight, when it comes to how thin or thick this actually is, I think we are approximately where we should be. Well, actually I take that back. We are definitely not where we should be. But in any case, we're gonna just try and approximate the height of this font to whatever is currently being shown on the screen, right? So I think we are looking at around 60 points approximately. The font weight needs to be thinner, so let's go for light or thin. Thin or light? Yeah, I think we should go for thin. I think that's the closest match for this interface, right? Now, I'm not sure if you see this as well, but I think this font over here is actually a little bit more heavy than the thin version and then a little bit lighter than the light version. So how do we approximate that as much as possible? We could do a quick workaround by adding a stroke. So let me just add a stroke by clicking right here and then sampling the color from over here, right? And it's going to be positioned outside. As you can see, having one whole pixel of stroke width is too much. So why don't we go for like 0.2, right? Or 0.3? Yeah, I think 0.2 seems about right. So now when we hide the stroke, you can see it becomes a little bit thinner. I'm not sure if you're actually able to see this, but as I toggle between visible and invisible stroke, you can see that when we actually do use the stroke, the font thickness matches this one a little bit more closer. So as you can see, if we add this stroke, the font now closely matches the thickness of the original thing. Maybe if we go for 0.25, that matches it even closer, right? So just for comparison, here is without the stroke and here is with the stroke. Of course, it's a tiny detail, but especially looking from a distance, I think this is way better, right? So let me remove this. We also need to create this alarm text. So again, text tool by pressing T, clicking once, and I'm going to type in alarm and also sample the color from here by pressing I and then clicking on the gray area. In this case, we're going to reduce the size of the font. I think we will be looking at around 12. I think that's what we want to go for, and we're going to go for regular thing, right? Yeah, that seems about right. Also, when it comes to the size of this font, let's just once more make sure that this is the correct size. I think not 60 but 59 maybe. 59 might be the correct size with a bit of spacing. Cool, so we have this alarm text over here. We also have the 20 text, and now when we align that to the left side, you can see that it actually resembles the original thing quite closely. So next thing will be creating this toggle button. Let me create a circle. So I'm gonna press O on my keyboard and then clicking once. What we're gonna do here is create a circle with an auto layout around this, and then we're gonna position the alignment. We're gonna change the alignment of the auto layout to left and right, depending on the state. And also we're gonna modify the colors so that it matches the actual thing, the real app. So let me position this ellipse over here and make it smaller, right? I'm gonna hold down my shift key and I'm going to position that to about here. I think we are looking at 27 by 27. Is that possible? Yeah, I think we are looking at 27 by 27. You can see that half a pixel is currently overlapping over here and then missing over here. So I think, yeah, 27 seems about right. All right, so sample the color and pick the white color from the real thing, and then select the ellipse once again and press Shift A to add an auto layout. This auto layout is gonna have a background, and I'm gonna sample the background again from the screenshot, which means this color right here. Then I'm gonna reduce the paddings of the auto layout to 2 pixels on each side, so 2 and 2. And then I'm going to round these corners completely, which means I'm gonna go for like 17 or 16 in terms of the corner radius in this area, right? So what we get is this. Now what you wanna do is make sure that this button overall, this whole auto layout, is the same width as the real thing again. So let me position that over here so that the edges meet precisely, and then I'm gonna extend this auto layout. Be careful not to pick the ellipse but the auto layout around it, and then extend that all the way to the total width of the button on the screenshot. And we are essentially done. Now we are going to rename this toggle button to toggle button, and we're going to define the state later, right? Now let me pick these 2 text objects, the time and the alarm, and then press Shift A to add an auto layout around these 2 text objects. I'm going to rename this to time and label, so that we know what this is essentially. And we're gonna position that on top of one of our screenshots and make sure that distance between the alarm and the time is correct. So why don't we reduce the height of the line actually, and of the first text, right? You could also potentially reduce the spacing between objects in this overall auto layout, but I think just setting this to around 69 or 70 seems right, and then moving the whole thing over here 1 pixel down does the trick, right? Doesn't have to be 100% precise, just close enough. And I think this is actually close enough, right? And the next thing we're going to do, we're going to select the time and label, and then the toggle button. And again, we're going to press Shift A to add auto layout, and we're going to change the direction of this auto layout to make this a horizontal auto layout. And you can see what happened. We have a new auto layout that contains the text as well as the button, and now we just need to make sure we match the total width, which is going to be in this case, I think around 346 pixels. We don't want to have a fixed object spacing, but we're gonna go over here to advanced layout and set the spacing mode to space between. This makes sure to push all the objects kind of to the edges, right, to fill in the whole container. We're gonna rename this auto layout to text and press enter, and then we're gonna go over to the pen tool and create a horizontal line, enter again to make changes, and then set the stroke width to 0.5 because this line seems to be 0.5 pixels, right? If this is one single pixel, this is going to be half a pixel. So that is that's finished. Let me also sample the color from this line again so that it matches precisely. And then what I'm going to do is select this vector line and this text and button auto layout and press Shift A again. Make sure this is vertical and then select vector 1 and set the horizontal resizing to fill container. This makes sure that the line now is going to respect the total width of the frame, and also the text and button auto layout. Inside this auto layout, I'm going to set that over to fill container as well. So this is what we get, right? If we change the size of this container, frame 1, you can see that the layout is going to respect these changes, which is exactly what we need. Now there's one more thing we need to figure out. We need to figure out the dimension of this whole component. So let me position that right about here and then increase the total width to total width of the interface. Make sure it corresponds to this line over here so that it goes from the left edge of the line to the right edge of the whole screen. Now you can see there is some padding to be created in this text and button auto layout, which we can definitely do by adjusting the left padding over here. I think I'm gonna add just one single pixel, and then for this button that's way over to the left side, so I think we could go for like 14. That seems about correct. That seems right. And then also the total height of this, meaning the spacing between these elements, we're just gonna make sure that this line is positioned precisely over this line, which means we're probably gonna have to include strokes in layout, right? You can see the difference that it does. If it's excluded from the layout and then we're gonna include it, it's gonna take into account the whole height of this stroke. I'm gonna reduce the spacing to 12, and then we can see it matches this layout absolutely 100% precisely, while at the same time this toggle button probably needs to be moved up by 1.5 pixels, or maybe we're just gonna move this upwards by 4.5, which means I'm gonna add the 0.5 to the X coordinates, and then what we're going to do is actually increase the padding from the top so that the toggle button is now precisely over the original, and also at the same time the time and label auto layout is going to have also 1 pixel of padding as well, right? Maybe 2. So all of this I'm doing right here is actually not that necessary. I'm just trying to match the final result as close as possible, but I don't really think it makes any difference. Let me just adjust the spacing to 12.5, and now I think we're good to go. So when I now move the frame over here, this is what we have. We have the 620 alarm with the button and everything is positioned in the correct position essentially. I'm going to change the name to alarm component, and then I'm going to select this alarm component and actually turn this into a component, right? We now have a component and we're going to create a variant, and this variant is going to be called enabled, whereas the first variant is going to be called disabled. Now, as you can see, the enabled version has a white text, so I'm going to select the time and label auto layout within this variant, and then I'm going to change the selection colors from this gray color to white. Additionally, I'm going to select this toggle button and change the auto layout alignment to right, change the background color to the screen right? And also, as you can see, it has a little bit of shadow. This white ellipse has a little bit of shadow, so let me just try and add a bit of that. This will be very, very challenging to match, but let's try. So why don't I add a bit of shadow and then reduce the opacity all the way to around 8 or 10 or 12, increase the blur, maybe decrease back to 10 or 8. Yeah, I think this seems about right. There is a very subtle difference, but the difference is still there, so let's just go with this shadow, right? And then also what I'm gonna do is make sure that when we click this button, so let me select the button from here, go to prototype and then connect that to the second variant. So when you on tap, change to property 1 enabled, and it's gonna be smart animate, it's gonna take 140 milliseconds. Similarly here, if we click on this button, it takes us back to the first state. Again, smart animate is out 140, and I think we should now be able to go back and forth with our with our states, right? Also, I'm gonna select the whole component and change the property 1 to state. All right, so let's recap what we have so far. We have created this alarm component that has now 2 states, and this means that all that is left is tag all of these in an auto layout, kind of create a list of these components, right? And then we're gonna have to create the header and the footer. So what I'm going to do now, I'm gonna create these icons, and this is gonna take a while. Feel free to skip this section if you get bored, but I think it's necessary to create those in order to get this final result. So let me just start doing this. So the timer is going to be circle, right? Circle, an ellipse with a stroke, with a gray stroke centered. The stroke is going to have 2 pixels, right? So far so good. Oops. Let me just make sure this ellipse has correct dimensions, 21 by 21. That's what it's supposed to be. And then we get a line from the top that is also going to be 2 pixels. It's also going to be this color, and it's going to have rounded caps. Rounded caps. I think we should go for a little reduction in height. I think it should be somewhere around here, I think. And also we're gonna have to create an arc. So let me just do this. And this, I think that's the angle we are looking for, and then go for 100 in this area, and we get this essentially, right? This shape. Also, we're gonna go for rounded endings. So endpoints round, right? Maybe this angle is gonna be a bit less. Gonna go like this. And also now this is gonna be a bit of a challenge, this shape right here. So how do we create that? So what I think is going on here is this is gonna be a circle. This is going to be a circle. It's gonna be extruded. It's gonna be basically gonna look like an insanely tall egg. And then what's gonna happen is this is gonna be rotated by this amount, right? 45 degrees, maybe 47 degrees, I don't know. And maybe first of all we're gonna go for no rotation, position that right here, and then stretch that all the way to here and make this one corner rounded, just this one corner rounded. But we're gonna go for like 0.2 or maybe 0.3, 0.6, I don't know. And yeah, I think this could be it. I think this could be it. 0.7 maybe. Yep, I think this is good, right? Good enough. And for the color, and I think we got ourselves a nice timer icon. Maybe we want to reduce the height of this, the overall size, and the rounding to 0.6 again, maybe 0.55. Again, not that it really matters, but let's just try and be precise. All right, so I think this is good to go. Then we're gonna use the text tool to type in timer. Again, SF Pro regular. It's gonna have no spacing, not even reduced spacing. It's gonna have this color, or maybe this color even, and it's gonna be 12, no, maybe 10, maybe 8. No, it's not 8, not 9. This appears to be 10. Yeah, this appears to be 10. And then I'm gonna just group these, group this icon, move that over here, right? So that's what we get. So the timer icon, that is finished. We could spend some more time, perfecting this icon, but I just think it's not worth it. From a distance, I think it looks close enough. It looks actually very, very close enough. Yeah, so let's go on to the next one. This is also going to be an ellipse, and the overall height appears to be 22. Maybe a bit more than that, maybe 23. Yep. Then we're gonna go for one smaller ellipse by duplicating this and again sampling the color from here. This ellipse appears to be 4 pixels tall and wide. Maybe we're gonna have to add half a pixel so that the spacing is similar from each side. So if you get, so let me again use the pen tool. That's gonna be, I think this is not gonna be 2 pixels, but 1.5. Let's also sample this color and let's go and place it right here. I think this is close enough. And then I'm gonna duplicate this, increase the width to 2, and then sample the color from here, make it less tall, y coordinates, change y coordinates like this. Yep, that seems right. Then I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to extend this all the way over here, right? I'm going to rotate this first. So again, duplicate, make it longer, and then rotate 45 degrees, and then reduce the size. And yeah, I think we are good to go. Let's group all of this, including this ellipse, Command G, and we have a stopwatch icon. Again, not 100% precise, but close enough. Now let's duplicate this text and type in stopwatch. Maybe this requires a bit of letter spacing of 2% maybe, here as well, maybe, yep. And let's position that over here again to get to the same position. And then this got moved out by accident. Let's move that back, and you can see that we have the timer and the stopwatch. Now it comes time to create the alarm icon. So alarm icon, I'm going to duplicate the stopwatch, ungroup this. I'm going to take this one up and one to the right, reduce to 1.5, or actually no, let's keep that at 2. And then flip it by pressing Shift V and position that over here, right? And then duplicate and Shift H to again move that over here and create a nice mirror pair of alarm legs. Then let's center this against, remove this ellipse, duplicate this line, rotate and position that over here. Select these two and align to the right, and then bottom. And then this one's not gonna be 7.5, but probably just around 6, I think, right? Or even 5. No, let's keep that at 6 and move that, group this and move that half a pixel to the left so that it appears to be in the center, right? Let's remove this on the top. And again, I think this should be 1.5, not 2, so 1.5. And lastly, these bells. So let's just create an ellipse. That's gonna be like 8 by 8, maybe, or 7 by 7. Enter, select, remove, shift and delete, remove, right? Enter, and then let's just adjust this so that it's flat. Takes a while. All right, so now we got this. We do a bit of corner rounding of around 1 pixel and then rotate that 45 degrees, or actually a bit less. Decrease size. I think this size seems about right. Duplicate this, flip it, move that over here, group it, these two, group them and move them over here. So again, this is going to be a bit of a challenge to get this right, but let's just use let's just use fractional pixels to achieve the result. So 88.5. Yep, I think this is definitely close enough. Let me sample the color and then select all of this and group it. Right, so we have a nice group, and then selection colors. Let's go for orange over here on the grays, right? And we have an alarm icon. Again, this is not going to be 100% precise. For example, you can see that the position of these bells is not quite there yet. Could be better, but I just don't want to be wasting your time, honestly. So yeah, I think this is definitely close enough. Then let's just do alarm, and again change that to orange, position that over here, and this over here as well. Finally, the world clock icon. How do we figure this out? Again, ellipse, stroke. It's going to be centered, and it's going to be 2 pixels, right? Or actually 1.5 again. 1.5, where we are at now. Also 22 or 21 pixels. Yeah, I think 22 is what we want to go for. And then we have a line. We have a line that goes straight through the middle. It's a horizontal line that just goes kind of through the whole thing, right? That's what we get. Then let's duplicate this. Duplicate and squeeze that like this right here, right? So that would be kind of this inner ellipse that we get right here, right? Then we have these 2 curved lines, and we're gonna achieve that by duplicating this, rotating that 90 degrees and moving that over here. Yeah, I think this is what we need. Let me select this, add a point here, and then add a point here, and then just select this, and move that and enter, right? Duplicate, flip, and position to around here. And then finally, take this line, duplicate this line, rotate this line, and we get a world clock icon. Now here we really do need to take a moment to adjust the position of the middle line because it looks very much not symmetrical. Yeah, I think this seems right? Again, not 100% precise, but I think this is definitely good enough. Let's group this icon, move that icon over here, replace this icon, duplicate this text and type in world clock. Move that over here. Awesome. So we have recreated these icons. Let me use the frame tool and create a frame that starts right here and ends right here. This frame is not going to have a background and it's going to be called bottom bar. And actually, the position of this is going to be slightly towards the top, half a pixel to the top, so that we can fit in this half pixel line, and then it's going to be 1 pixel taller to accommodate, or actually half a pixel taller to accommodate the height of this overall section. And now this is what we get. Let's move this over here and let's add fill to see what we got. So this is what we get. I think this is pretty close to the original thing. I think we can be very happy about this result. Let me just add this line. So this is obviously a rectangle, a rounded rectangle that goes from here to here, right? It's gonna be 134 and we're gonna subtract 0.5 pixels to accommodate again the position. Increase the rounding, white color completely, and then place that into this bottom bar. Perfect. It's going to be to the center and bottom. Nice. So this bottom bar is basically the only thing we need to do now is take a half pixel line. We could use this one from here, copy, and then paste that here. Align to the top and to the center, and then just make it go all the way to the edges. So that's 375, 375. And center again. So this is what we get. This is what we get. I'm going to move that again half a pixel down. So plus 0.5, not on the height, but on the y coordinates, plus 0.5, or actually 0.25. And this is exactly what we need. For example, the color, or actually do white with transparency. I think that's just a white overlay over the background. Now that I look at these texts, I think this is not going to be regular, but this is going to be medium, right? I think that's closer. Now let's duplicate this frame over here. Let's increase the height and let's flip it so that the line is now at the bottom. And obviously we need to remove all the things that it contains, except for the line, actually, except for the line. So this is what we get, right? We get a frame with a line at the bottom. That is 89 pixels tall, or 89 points. And actually I think it could be 88, to be completely honest, or 88.5. Yeah, I think this seems about right. So what's the status right now? We need to finalize this top bar, and then we need to actually create the prototype, and we are finished. So let's continue. All right, so now we need to start preparing this top bar. So I'm going to tell you right away, I'm not going to be creating these icons. I'm just going to use a placeholder basically. So I'm just going to use a rectangle like this, probably because it would take just too much time. So let's skip that for now. Let me just place this bar that we have created on top of the screenshot. Let me just create a contrasting background so that we know where we are actually placing these elements. And right away we can see that, for example, this placeholder should be around here with about this height, and I think that's enough to use as a placeholder. Then we're going to use again the text tool, 1335 or 1:35 p.m. Depends on where you are. So I think this is again medium, and the font size seems to be 15 with no letter spacing, or actually maybe 14. No, definitely not 14. So 15 with -2 letter spacing. Yep, I think that's what we want to go for. Then I'm gonna copy this and create the edit button, which means changing the size. I think 17 seems right, with an even bigger or even smaller letter spacing, sorry. So, and then we get the alarm headline, obviously, and that's gonna be a bigger letter spacing. I think none or -1, something like that. Very simple. And then finally, we're going to use the pen tool to create this cross plus icon that is used for creating a new alarm, right? Let me duplicate this and rotate this, and we have our plus icon. Let me also rename this plus icon, and I think we are good to go. So let's just constrain this, move this whole thing over here. So you can see that we have this top bar, except for these icons, which, as I said, I'm gonna just use this placeholder. And let me just change the background color to black, fully opaque. And also now let's change the colors. So let me select these two, and under selection colors, I'm gonna sample the color from the screenshot, and for the white one, I'm going to also change that to this color. So again, sample from here, and yep, I think this is good to go. Also, maybe we could adjust this headline to be semi-bold instead of medium, just to get the appearance really precisely. And so let's recap again. We have a bottom bar, we have a top bar. Let's rename this to top bar. And now all that remains is kind of assembling all of this and then making sure we have this background blur effect on this top bar and the bottom bar, and just make sure it's constrained when scrolling. So let's do that. Let's place these over here, center and align, and also fix position when scrolling. Same here, center and fix position when scrolling. What I'm going to do next is use the alarm component instance, and then I'm going to duplicate this and create an auto layout from this. This auto layout is going to have no spacing at all, and it's going to be fill container, both of these, and then this is going to be called, this auto layout, that's going to be called alarms container. So now this whole app is going to have a dark background. I think it's black completely. So let's just sample the background color from here, and then let's figure out what's the width of this alarms container. If we align that to the right, let me align that to the right. I think, yes, 360 seems correct. So 360 seems about right. So let me duplicate this multiple times. And then let's take this whole alarms container and place that right here. Align to the right and to the top. Actually, let's add a few pixels to the top so that it aligns precisely with this top bar. And now let's make sure that we take both of these bars and press Command Option right bracket so that they are both on the top. Let's launch the prototype, and then actually let's go to prototype again and enable vertical scrolling. Right? Enable vertical scrolling so that this can happen. And now we could kind of call this a day, but I think we should go for kind of this effect with the background blur is very easy. Let's just do this. So what I think is going on here is obviously background blur effect. We're gonna have transparency. You can see that if you compare the sharpness of this text and then how very much blurred this is, I think we could really make this significant. So I think we could go for like 32. Yeah, 32 seems about right. Let me copy this effect and paste that here. And then let's also go for this color, which is slightly lighter. Let's make it even lighter a little bit. And then let's add some transparency so that you can actually see the blurred background around 80. Yeah, I think we got the color of the top and bottom bar correct. But I think the blurring should be even more significant. So instead of 32, let's do like 40 or even 50. Let's try 50. Let's try 50. I think we are getting there. I think we should tune this up a little bit, and I think we are done here, right? So let's go for 55. 55. Well, yeah, I think this is it. So we now can scroll through this list of alarms. Let's make this list a bit longer. Let's duplicate the alarms a few times, and we can now scroll for quite a while, right? And also you are able to enable and disable an alarm just like with the iOS on your phone. You can see the text changes color. You can scroll down, select a different one, go back, enable, disable, whichever ones you'd like. Obviously, you could also now change the times so that it's believable. I mean, you're probably not gonna get multiple alarms going off at the same time. But yeah, I think we are done here. So if you'd like to download the source file for this project, maybe use it in your own project, check the link in the description. And thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please leave a like. And also, if you personally find value in watching my videos, please consider supporting me on Patreon to not only get access to our community, but also get a discount to my store. So let's call this a day. I think we are done here. I think we have managed to match the original pretty closely, and I will see you in the next one.